Good evening to all of you. Dear Ashish Agarwal ji, today's resource person, and my dear MC members, past chairman, and senior members, a good evening to all of you for today's webinar on integrity of GST and this GST registration and input tax credit in the light of the latest judicial pronouncement. So I welcome you all once again for today's webinar. My dear friends, you all know that GST is not a new thing to all of you, because GST from the 2017 that we are in the practice at the time that everybody very eager to know that what is GST, and many of you might have passed the certificate courses also about the GST. But latest notifications, latest judicial pronouncements, because it is already introduced some 4 years back. So in 2017, now you come to the conclusion that now again for this going to the courts, and we are taking the steps for this. Our view, the department's view are different, because as all you know that registration of a business with the tax authorities employs obtaining a unique identification code from the concerned tax authorities, so that the operation of the data relating to the business can be agglomerated and correlated. In any tax system, this is the most fundamental requirement for identification of the business for tax purposes or having any compliance verification program. Registration of the goods and service tax regime will confer some advantage like legally recognized supplier of goods and services, proper accounting of taxes paid on the input goods and services, which can be utilized for the payment of GST due on supply of goods and services, and both by the business. Pass on the credit of the tax paid on the goods and services supplied to the purchasers or recipients. Because main assumptions are this: a legal person without GST registration can neither collect the GST from the customers nor claim input tax credit system of GST paid by him. There will be a threshold of the gross annual turnover, including exports and exempted supplies, and which any person engaged in any supply of goods or services or both will not be required to take registration. Once a dealer crosses the threshold limit or he starts a new business, registration application must be filed within 30 days from the date of the dealer's liability for obtaining the such registration. Effective date of registration would be the date of the application in all cases, whether the application has been filed with the prescribed time limit of 30 days or otherwise. The taxpayer would be eligible for the ITC in respect of all his purchases from the date of application in case of the application for registration has been filed within 30 days. The taxpayer, however, not be eligible for ITC in respect of the purchases prior to the date of registration in case of registration application is not filed within the prescribed time limit of 30 days. Although is of the view that such provision may not stand the test of judicial scrutiny. On the other hand, states based on the experience and that were the view of having relevant provision on the GST law has helped the contest cases in courts. GST law drafting committee to make provision relating to eligibility of ITC accordingly, as well as for levying penalty in case of dealer failing to the register within the stipulated time period. However, such person with all India gross annual turnover below the threshold turnover would be allowed to take registration. If he wants to buy by taking such a voluntary registration, he can enter the credit chain even prior to the crossing the threshold limit, provided he does not opt for the compounding scheme. So all other taxable persons will be required to take GST registration. Such persons will be able to take credit of tax paid on input services, capital goods, and pass on the credit of GST to his customers of like receipts of the goods or services both. The registered person eligible for the compounding of the scheme, but after opting against the compounding can pay the regular taxes and file the returns on a monthly basis, and thereby make his supplies eligible for input tax credit in the hands of the purchaser of the recipient. Irrespective of the turnover, if a taxable person carries out any interstate supply and or is liable to pay GST and a reverse charge, he will be compulsory required to take registration. Such person neither be eligible for exemption threshold nor compounding scheme. However, an individual importing services for the personal consumption will not be liable to pay GST under the reverse charges or registered under the GST law so provides. There are so many case laws on the registration, and day by day so many notifications are issued by the our government. And today we are very much grateful to our Ashish Kumar Agrawal, who is available to discuss all the issues relating to the GST registration and integrity, because the multiple rates of rates. Also, what is the impact on the registration of the GST also until a uniform GST rate comes into force. So, really, all these issues will be discussed by our today's resource persons, say Ashish Kumar Agrawal ji, and will be benefited with his deliberations on this GST, integrity of GST registration and the latest legal pronouncements. With this, welcome once again for the today's webinar, and welcome you Ashish Agrawal ji for this today's webinar, sir. And now I request Gudiwada Avinash to introduce our speaker, say Ashish Agrawal ji. Thank you.
Good evening, members. I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker, Ashish Kumar Agarwal. He is BCom graduate and by profession fellow chartered accountant. He is member of institute from April 2010 and in practice from September 2011. He is partner of Ashish Kumar Agarwal and Co. Professional qualification attained were: he completed certification course in GST and concurrent audit offered by ICAI. He also works as management consultant with SL Consultant Private Limited for 2 years, handled loan syndication, PE and VC. His core areas of practice were handling consultation and appeals under IDT matters of AP VAT, service tax and GST, handling complaints matter in taxation and accountant. He is speaker at various public forums on VAT and GST matters. And he is also co-chairman of Sales Tax Committee of Chamber of Commerce Vijayanagaram, EC member of AP Federation of Chamber of Commerce and Industry Vijayawada, life member of All India Federation of Tax Practitioners. With this, I hand over proceedings back to Vice Chairman. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Avinash, for introducing today's resource persons. Say Ashish Kumar Agrawal ji. Sir, welcome once again. Welcome you, sir, for this webinar. Now you take up the session, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. You have done a lot of tasks for me. So basic introduction part, I need not require to speak. So our Honorable Vice Chairman sir has taken care of it. And thank you, Branch, for giving me one more chance. And it is really privilege to speak at the home branch. So this being my home branch, it is always a privilege for me. So once again, good evening, everybody. With the advent of WhatsApp, the beauty part is nothing is latest. Even during our webinar, if some judgment comes in, everybody gets the information. And it's like a food which is kept out of refrigerator, which gets stale very fast. So the concept of latest has become a very difficult task in the era of technology and the pace at which information is disseminated. We get a judgment by today evening, and by tomorrow afternoon, we will get a number of commentaries on the judgment. It makes our life easy and at times a bit difficult. So with this, see, everybody knows that GST, not only GST, any taxation law requires the taxpayer to get himself registered. Without registration, identification, and levy of tax is not possible. It would be a difficult task for the department. And in the GST law, once you are required to be registered, all other compliances will start and even your liability to pay tax will start. So we have divided, for purpose of easy understanding, the registration part into two mandatory features. One is turnover based, and second is certain class of dealers or certain activities. Even though your turnover is not exceeding the threshold limit, you are required to be registered. Section 22 deals with regular registration, where every supplier is required to be registered in the state in which he is making a taxable supply. Here we have to understand the word taxable supply. If you are having any activity in any state where none of the supplies from such state are not taxable, you may not be required to take registration, because the word specifically being used is taxable supply, and the limit is fixed to 20 lakhs. So if your total turnover pan India base is less than 20 lakhs, you may not require to take a registration in general. For special category states, our seven sisters, except for one state, those 6 states and few UTs, the limit is being kept at 10 lakhs. In the initial days itself, because of the cumbersome processes involved in GST, the government has come up with an enhanced threshold, and the enhanced threshold is 40 lakhs. So before going to understand how this 20 lakhs is to be calculated, let us understand a few important terminologies which are used above. First of all, the law says if your aggregate turnover exceeds rupees 20 lakhs. The financial year, your turnover exceeds 20 lakhs. So what is an aggregate turnover? Aggregate turnover is very simple. Your sum total of taxable supplies, exempted supplies, exports, and interstate supplies between the same dealer who is covered by same PAN. Very simple, our erstwhile F-form transactions. So if branch of Andhra Pradesh is supplying goods to branch of Odisha, still that will be included in your turnover. So in total of this should not exceed this 20 lakhs. Now, is exempted supplies means only exempted supplies? It seems not to be. Anything which is exempted under section 11 plus non-taxable supplies. So exempted supplies includes supplies which are specifically declared as exempted by of notification plus non-taxable supplies. So what are the non-taxable supplies? Non-taxable supplies are those supplies which are not leviable to GST. Which are not leviable to GST. So in short, our taxable supplies, exports, and interstate supplies within the same PAN plus non-leviable supplies are equivalent to your aggregate turnover. So if this turnover exceeds the threshold limit, you are expected to take the registration. So turnover is 20 lakhs. Every state has given an option to fix the limit not less than 20 and not more than 40. So the 40 lakh turnover is not fixed for all the states. So each state has to give their own notification. For example, Andhra has given a notification increasing the turnover limit to 40 lakhs, whereas Telangana had not issued any such notification. So for a dealer in Telangana, the threshold limit will be 20 lakhs. And the additional threshold limit, what is being given? It is given to dealers who are exclusively dealing in goods. If the dealer is not exclusively dealing in goods and also providing some amount of services, then the threshold limit will be still 20 lakhs. It will not be 40 lakhs. So Andhra has issued the GO on 20th March 2019, and the GO number is 252. So by GO number 252, AP has notified the limit as 40 lakhs. And again, for sale of ice cream, pan masala, and tobacco, they have put the limit up to 20 lakhs only. So any dealer who is selling ice cream, pan masala, and tobacco products are required to take registration once their threshold turnover exceeds rupees 20 lakhs. Now, going through, can I say that interest is service? Should I consider interest as service? Thus, for purpose of calculating this threshold limit, shall I include the interest which I receive on my loans, deposits also? And if so, for purpose of registration, whether my threshold for Andhra will be 20 or 40. Because if there is a service involved, assume interest is service. If service is involved, then our threshold limit is 20, not 40. Now, what is service? The service is defined under GST as anything other than goods, money, and securities. So, anything which are defined as goods, money, and securities are not to be included in service. Anything other than that is service. But activity relating to use of money, that is our deposits. When you give loan to someone, it is use of money. So activity relating to use of money, conversion of cash, denomination, currency, one form to another form is deemed to be service where consideration is charged. Where consideration is charged. If no consideration is charged, then it will not be included in the value of service. Now, this is a very interesting advanced ruling. One is from Gujarat, and a similar view is being reconfirmed by Karnataka. Here the question is, the applicant is getting a rent of 9.2 lakhs. Around 9 lakhs is getting a rent. In addition to that, he is getting interest from his savings bank, fixed deposit, PPF, and loans given to friends and relatives. The question before the authority is, how should I calculate my threshold limit for 20 lakhs? Whether the interest earned in savings bank, PPF, loans given to friends and relatives is to be included for purpose of 20 lakhs. And sadly, the answer is yes. The answer is yes. You have to include the value of all interest that is being received, even though it is exempted, even though the entire interest, that is interest from PF, bank, and advances given to friends and relatives is exempted from tax. For purpose of calculating threshold, you are expected to add this value to arrive this 20 lakhs limit. Even they have taken a stand that for purpose of supply, the definition of supply says use it for furtherance of business. If it is not for furtherance of business, it is not leviable to tax, that is non-taxable. Since aggregate turnover should not exceed 20, they are under the impression that even that non-taxable turnover should also include. Now, this is the catching point where as an auditors, we should be bit conservative. We have already seen since last 1.5 years, our clients have received a number of notices from Central Taxes Department that we have received information from income tax. Your turnover is so and so. You have not shown, or you have shown less turnover. Please explain. And wherever satisfactory explanation is not given or no explanation is given, they have levied service tax and show cause notices are issued left, right, top, and bottom. There was a huge cry that even for doctors, advocates, and people who are not required to pay tax, they have also received this notice. So this is how we have to prepare for the future. So already wherever we have filed the income tax return, even though we are declaring certain items under the head income from other sources, house property, or even capital gains, will tomorrow expose our clients to this type of interpretation. And you know, even though we are calling it as advanced ruling, whether you consider it as advanced ruling or adverse ruling, department is taking these as their precedents. So while filing the, especially this is important from the context of proprietors, that is individuals who are not registered under the GST and making these type of supplies. The same could be the scenario with the charitable organization, where even a small part of receipt, which is taxable in nature, the entire donation may be included for purpose of calculating this threshold limit, and they may be forced to take registration. Once you don't take the registration, even though you are eligible, penalty for non taking the registration, non filing the returns, loss of input, and a liability to pay tax along with interest and penalty will be there. So whatever we have just now discussed, they are only for those class of people where they are exceeding certain threshold. No, for certain type of transactions or dealers or supplies, irrespective of threshold, even though your turnover is 10,000, you may require to take a registration. One, a person who is making interstate supplies. So any person who want to make any interstate supplies, he is duty bound to take the registration irrespective of the fact that his turnover is less than threshold limit. Similarly, any casual dealer who is making any taxable supply. I will come back to this casual dealer because very latestly during the Deepavali season, AP State Taxes Department have came up with some clarificatory order, or to say instruction, on this casual taxable person. Next, persons who are required to pay tax under reverse charge. For example, I am a small dealer. My turnover is less than 20 lakhs. I am not making any interstate supplies, but I received an LR from VRL Transport for rupees 800. For rupees 800. Now, it is a case of mandatory reverse charge under section 9(3). Only for this 800 LR, now I am duty bound to take a registration. And once I take a registration, I cannot say, no, my turnover is less than 20. I'm taking the registration only for purpose of reverse charge. No, all provisions, all your supplies will be subject to GST. You have to take the input if you're a regular dealer and whatnot. Next, persons who are required to pay tax under 9(5). Non-resident taxable person making a taxable supplies. Again, person who are required to deduct tax under section 51, even though they have taken a regular registration for purpose of section 51, they have to take a separate registration. Person who is making supplies on behalf of other taxable person, they have issued already a clarificatory circular. In short, to say in one word what they want to say, all consignment agents, irrespective of their turnover, they have to take registration. Since as per our accounting, whatever the consignment sales are happening, they are not our turnovers, we won't reflect in our profit and loss account. But still, once you are a consignment agent of a taxable person, then you are duty bound to take a registration. Wherever input service distributor registration is required, again, no threshold is applicable. And a person who is making supplies through electronic commerce operator. So if I'm selling something through Amazon, Zomato, or Swiggy, whatever may be the electronic commerce operator platform, and where as per section 52, such operator is required to collect TCS or TDS, then the registration is mandatory irrespective of threshold. Every person who is providing online database access, that is ODIR services, they are compulsorily required to take the registration, and the ODIR services are provided from outside India to India, other than registered person. One example is our YouTube. So whenever you watch movies on the YouTube, they fall under ODIR services. And even though the service is being provided out of India, the YouTube is required to take a registration in India for purpose of this. And any other class of person whom the government may notify. So these are the class of persons or class of transactions where even though your threshold turnover does not exceed 20 lakhs or 40 lakhs, still you are required to take registration. So, we can repeat once again, wherever for purpose of AP only, because all of us are mainly from Andhra. So all, because this is a very much of a branch level of seminar. So if the dealer is from Andhra, is in Andhra, and his total turnover from services is exceeding 20, then he is duty bound to take registration. If his turnover is exclusively in goods, no services are involved, then only the limit is 40 lakhs. Now, who is this casual taxable person? A casual taxable person occasionally takes a transaction and where he doesn't have a fixed place of business in such state. So if I am from Andhra, I had a fixed place of business in Andhra, and if I make any occasional transactions, then I will not be a casual taxable person for purpose of Andhra. Okay. If I make an occasional transaction in Odisha where I don't have a permanent or fixed place of business, then I will be casual taxable person for Odisha, and there I need to take a registration. No, it's good. Now, who is not required to take registration? There are certain class of people already there in the law, and only one notification where no registration is required. Any person who is engaged exclusively in supplies which are exempted from this act, where his entire transactions are exempted from this act, such dealers are not required to take any registration. Next, an agriculturist, only to the extent what he is cultivated out of his land, only to that extent he is not required to take registration. For say, I am an agriculturist, I am growing paddy, but I am selling wheat, then I will not get this benefit of agriculturist. So only the product which I had grown in my own land or the land taken on lease, that is where the cultivation is done by me, only to that extent I am not required to take registration. And government can notify. So already one notification is there for GTS, where a class of dealers where entire outward supplies are subject to RCM, where their entire outward supplies are subject to RCM, irrespective of threshold, they are not required to take registration. Especially this was given from point of view of GTS. Now, coming to certain practical aspects of GST registration, we have seen in between that nowadays, whenever we are applying for GST registration, the honeymoon period is over. Initially, whatever we have uploaded, they have approved. But nowadays, since last few months, whenever we are going to upload something, every time there will be a deficiency. Every time there will be a deficiency that this is not proper, or this is not expected like this, or you have to provide me certain more information. A major challenging part what we are looking at nowadays is place of business. Wherever we are uploading the rent agreements, if the rent agreement is unregistered, especially there the problems are quite more. First and foremost question, whether registration of rent agreement is mandatory. There was an executive order in 1999 by the Stamps Department which requires any rent agreement to be registered mandatorily. So every rent agreement is expected to be registered. Even though we are not registering, the department is accepting. Along with the rent agreement, we have to upload appropriate evidence to show that the person who has given the property on these rent are rent free to us, they are eligible to do so. They are eligible to do so, or they are the owner of the property and the property is in their possession. The requirement could be the latest municipal tax receipt, the latest power bill. One more thing, what we are regularly observing, the information as per the supporting document and the address or the name of owner in the rent agreement or consent letter at times doesn't match. There also we are facing the problem. In addition to this, good number of queries are being raised at times which are unnecessary. Even in our WhatsApp group, at times we have seen certain queries which are very much funny. Even I remember one of our member posted where the officer asked the wife to prove that the person who has given the properties is husband. So these type of things are coming out now when they are not finding anything. Appropriate care should be taken while documentation. And the major challenging part is at times they're asking those set of documents, even though they are eligible, available with us, the uploading capacity for those documents are not more than 1 MB. Or if you are lucky, at times you will get up to 1.9 MB. And the information, whatever they ask, at times exceeds such a size that we cannot reduce it to even 1.9 MB or 1 MB. If it is a state registration, yes, the benefit is now all state registrations are going to jurisdiction. So you can give a covering letter stating that these information cannot be uploaded because of volume and you are submitting the information manually. And you can upload an index of it on the website, which will be helpful. But the problem is with the central registrations, which are centralized. Here it requires a proper representation that either the uploading capacity should be enhanced or a standardized checklist should be developed so that these type of inconveniences to be avoided. Now, at times dealer changes their place of business or open a new godown even for a short period of time, closes them. So all type of changes in the primary place of business and additional place of business are required to be updated from time to time. If during the course of any proceedings, the department identifies that goods are laying in a premises which are not registered, the dealer would be in problem. The department will take a stand that these goods are kept there clandestinely in order to avoid payment of tax. So always due care should be taken to see that the premises wherever the dealer is doing their businesses are duly added to their registration. Time to time proper amendment should be done, proper registration certificate should be provided there, and even outside a proper board with GST number is to be displayed. Next, at times dealer starts business with some intent. He changes the line of business. Top 5 commodities or top 5 services can be added. Even though it is not mandate as per law to update this being a non-core field, you can update anytime. No permission is required from the officer to correct these fields. So but at times, see, law is something, practice is something. At times the department stops the vehicle, say that no, you are not registered for this commodity, or the commodity what you are registering is a high risk commodity. So I want to check. A number of practical problems are there. Yes, legally they are not expected to do so, but every time the dealer cannot go to the legal forums to get these issues resolved. So in order to avoid such problems, it is always better to update HSN and SSCs of top 5 commodities or goods being dealt by the dealer. And finally, at times, especially for big firms, corporates, where directors are not signing the returns, but authorized representatives are signing the returns. At time, employee leaves his DSCs with the company and they are using the same DSC to file the returns. It is risky both to the company and to the person whose DSC is being used, because unless his name is removed, he is still taking the responsibility of those returns, and if something is wrong in those returns, then he will be in a problematic situation. Similarly, whenever a dealer who is taking the registration wants to opt for composition, he has to opt only at the stage of registration. If he miss the buses, again he has to wait up to 31st of March to convert to composition. Now, the benefit of proper information on the GST registration is, if you check any GST number after login, you will now today get his email ID, mobile number, and complete address to communicate. So please keep your updated email ID, mobile number, and address, so that if somebody wants to communicate, he can communicate through that mode. So with this, we are coming to an end on the GST registration aspect. Now I would start with the input tax credit on a very faster side. These are the few conditions which are to be satisfied mandatorily. These are enumerated in section 16 subsection 2 of GST Act. Only on satisfaction of these conditions, the person is eligible to claim ITC. Only registered dealer is eligible to claim ITC. Unregistered dealers are not eligible to claim ITC. 1. The dealer should be in possession of original tax invoice. If the dealer is not in a possession of original tax invoice, the department is not inclined to give them the ITC. The goods or services should have been physically received. Sorry, the goods and services should have been received. Only after the goods and services are received, then only you are expected to claim ITC. Tax on such supplies were actually paid to the government. If taxes on such supplies are not paid, sorry, you are not going to get the ITC. 4. You and your supplier both should have filed the return. If you have not filed the return, again, no ITC. The recipient should be paid within 180 days from the date of invoice. If you don't pay within 180 days, you are expected to show this input as your outward supplies, paid with interest from the date of taking the ITC, and whenever you pay, you reclaim. If you are buying any capital goods, depreciation on ITC part is not expected to take. If you take depreciation on the ITC part, then such ITC is not eligible. And finally, the input should be for this financial year, for the year, should be taken by the September return due date of the next year or filing of annual return, whichever is earlier. So these are the very basic conditions which a person has to, registered person has to satisfy to avail the ITC. Now, coming to the history of ITC. Initially, when the act is to become, and when act has also been notified, we were being told that 1, you have to file GSTR 1. Once you file GSTR 1 by 11, you will get GSTR 2A. Based on GSTR 2A, your 2 will be auto-populated. You accept, reject, or hold the ITCs, based on which the other dealer's 1A will be prepared. And from the 1A, the other dealer has to accept, reject, and finally, your output return will be prepared on 18, that is GSTR 3. Pay the tax, close. Then yes, 2 more returns, MIS1 and MIS2 are there. But I think we all know that somewhere the bridge collapsed and we are left with 1, 2A, 2B, 3B. So unluckily, 2, 1A and 3 has left us. They never joined the bandwagon of GST. Yes, 2 has came only for 1 month. They also suspended them. If you look at the way the act is being amended, the things are being changed. Everything is now going to be automated. The first step is e-invoicing. They have started with a big turnover. Now they brought it at 50 crores, and slowly, once the things stabilize, they are going to make it mandate for everybody. So in future, Your e-invoices will auto-populate your one. Once you file your one, 2A or 2B is going to be auto-populated. And from this auto-populated 2B, you are going to have your GSTR 3B auto-populated. As of now, system is allowing us to change our 3B. It is allowing us to change our turnover. Yes, it is giving a warning that you have exceeded certain thresholds. But yes, still it is allowing you to do so. But in future, we are going to see that everything is going to be automated, and that is what government is doing stage wise now. We are now handling two documents regarding this input. One is our 2A and one is 2B. The very basic between 2A and 2B is 2A is dynamic. I seen my 2A now. I'm having 10 lakhs of ITC. After 5 minutes, my ITC can change from 10 to 9, 10 to 11, 10 to 100. As and when a supplier updates any invoice, supplier updates any credit note or debit note, my 2A is going to change. My 2A is not going to static. I don't know what is going to be there at the end. But whereas 2B is a static document that is generated from 14, that is generated on 14th of every month. It will have all the invoices uploaded from previous month 12th to current month 11 for regular dealers, previous month 13th to previous month 14th to current month 13th for IFF dealers. So those information is static. Once done. Any correction happened or anybody uploaded thereafter, it will be going to get part in the next month GSTR 2B. So the major difference between 2A and 2B is static and dynamic in nature. Now we have got in this entire process, we got one more friend, that is 36.4. So as we used to say, after Christ and before Christ. So for input, now we have before 36.4 and after 36.4. The legality of 36.4 is under challenge. Whether 36.4 is legal, illegal, constitutional, unconstitutional, whether government has right, only the judiciary will decide. But as of now, we have two periods, prior to 36.4, after 36.4. So what is this 36.4? By way of rule 36.4, the government has brought a certain threshold and brought a recognition based ITC based on 2A or 2B. So only when the other dealer has uploaded the invoice in this month, they have given certain threshold. To the threshold, you can take cushion and claim ITC accordingly. From the period of October 19 to December 19, the cushion is 20%. From January 20 to December 20, it is 10%. And from January 21, they have reduced it to further 5% only. Say my ITC in GSTR 2A or 2B is 1 lakh. My book ITC is 1,40,000. I can take the additional threshold of 5 at present. So I can maximum, I'm expected to claim or I'm advised to claim only 1,05,000 worth of ITC. In between this, there was an act amendment and have inserted a new clause, section 16(2)AA. This 16(2)AA is inserted but yet to be notified. This is going to be a very dangerous amendment. Once it is notified, it will close all the doors. It will close all the arguments that we used to take whenever we are dealing the cases of 2A versus 3B or 2B versus 3B, non-payment of tax, and etc. And finally, we will let us see today that how much interest I had to pay if I wrongly availed ITC. So this is rule 36.4 and 16(2)AA what I am discussing. You could see that in 36.4, they never used the word 2A or 2B. They say that not uploaded by the supplier under section 37(1), invoices, debit notes. So they never refer to 2A or 2B. You know that department is very much stringent and hell-bound to follow 2B. And this 16(2)AA That is, the details of invoices in debit note referred in clause A has been furnished by the supplier in their outward supplies, and such detail has been communicated. It should be communicated. This is one more important thing. Just not furnishing, it should be ever communicated. How he will communicate? By 2A or 2B. Now, certain latest judicial precedents or judicial updates we have on this input. The latest is Bharti Airtel case in the Supreme Court. In this case, very briefly to say, for month of July, August, September, Bharti Airtel has not claimed any ITC, taking a stand that since 2A is not available, and since it doesn't, it cannot confirm whether the input is available in 2A or not, whether the other dealer has uploaded the return or not, paid the taxes or not. They cannot take the ITC, and they have paid the entire output in cash. Once the 2A came into picture, that is the facility of 2A is made available, they requested the department to allow them to file a revised return for July, August, and September to claim such and such ITC, taking a stand that since 2A was not available for that period, if 2A is available only after September, they should be given the benefit of something which is expected to done by the department, and since department has not done, they have every right to get this thing amended. Honorable Delhi High Court allowed their plea. The matter traveled to Supreme Court. Here is an important observation in the para number 46 of the judgment, where the Honorable Supreme Court has categorically said that 2A is only a facility. It is a facility and it cannot be the sole basis of claim the ITC. That is where I had underlined the lines: non-performance or non-operability of Form 2A. For that matter, other forms will be of no avail because the dispensations stipulated at relevant time oblige the registered person to submit return on basis of such self-assessment in 3B manually on electronic platform. Okay, even it has said in the initial lines, we need not multiply the authorities referred in the concerned judgment cited before us. An opinion is not dealt with cardial aspects of statutory obligation, wherein it was clearly said that GSTR 2A is only a facilitator. GSTR 2A is only a facilitator. 2A is only a facilitator for informed decision. The ITC can be taken. The ITC can be taken only based on your books of accounts, and that too on the self-assessment. So this judgment is, yes, definitely going to help us a lot for the period that is before 36 for at least. Now this is one more judgment which is being famously used. It's a case of DY Bethel Enterprises. The facts of this case is, in case of DY Bethel, they have procured some inputs from a person whom subsequently found the department has made an allegation that there are only invoice supplies and no actual goods are delivered. The dealer requested for cross-examination. The department has rejected their request for cross-examination and gone ahead with the opinion that the goods are being not supplied and the taxes are not being paid by the supplier. Hence, recipient is not expected to take input and the entire input tax credit is disallowed. Madras High Court on the two issues have remanded the matter back. One, once the supplier requested the recipient requested the supplier for cross-examination, the department is duty bound to provide opportunity of cross-examination. They cannot outrightly reject the request. Two, okay, for the time being accepted that the other dealer has not paid the tax. First, the law has provided good number of ammunitions to the department to collect such taxes which are not being discharged by the other dealer. Without making any effort to collect taxes from the supplier, attacking the recipient and blocking the ITC or demanding the reversal of ITC is not correct. So this is one judgment which is again going to be helpful wherever the other dealer has not paid the taxes and department is asking us to reverse the ITC. Now there are certain few cases which I'm going to quote here. All these matters are pending before various high courts on various issues. For example, GSTR 2A versus 3B, whether 2A need to be compared with 3B. In case of Bharat Aluminium, the matter is pending before Chhattisgarh High Court. And in case of SPL Infrastructure, this matter is pending before AP High Court. Even the matter has been, there is SLP filed in the case of SPL Infra by the state before Supreme Court to get the matter disposed of at the Supreme Court level. But Supreme Court remanded it back, said that let the matter be first decided by the AP High Court. A similar matter is pending before Indore High Court, where Indore High Court has seized the matter. Final hearing has been done. At any moment, we can expect the first judgment on this 2A versus 3B. Next, 16.2C. 16.2C is where the other dealer has not paid the taxes. The matter is again pending before Bombay, Gujarat, Tripura, and Delhi High Courts. Notices have been issued. Nothing has came up, but yes, the matter is sub judice. 16.4. This is the time limit by which you are expected to claim the ITC. So that is September of the next financial year or filing of annual return, whichever is earlier. Again, constitutional validity of 16.4 is challenged and the matter is pending before Delhi, Jharkhand and Gujarat High Courts. These are the citations. But one important thing that we have to look into the 16.4, where the input should be taken is the question. The provision is silent where the input should be taken. The provision I had reproduced below. A registered person shall not entitle to take input tax credit in respect of any invoice or debit note for supply of goods or services, both after the due date of furnishing of the return for the month of September following the end of financial year to such invoices or debit note pertain or furnished for the relevant annual return, whichever is earlier. It never mentioned that ITC should be taken in the return. The point where you first claim your ITC is your books of accounts. Only after claiming the ITC from your books of accounts, you claim such ITC in your returns. Now, 16.4 is silent when they use the word take ITC. One. Second, 16.2 of CGST Act starts with the word notwithstanding contained in this section. As we all are well aware, whenever a provision starts with the word notwithstanding, it supersedes all other provisions. So section 16.2 starts with the word notwithstanding anything contained in this section. So I personally feel that 16.2 supersedes 16.4. So unless I satisfy all the conditions, 16.4 doesn't comes into picture. 16.4 comes into picture only when all the conditions of section 16 subsection 2 are satisfied. From that date only this due date is going to start. Let us wait how the courts are going to come up with this. But yes, there was one judicial order from Supreme Court in case of state of Tamil Nadu under TN VAT Act, where they held this provision as constitutional. Under TN Tamil Nadu VAT Act, there is a provision that input should be taken within 1 year from the end of the year in which such supplies sales are made. The matter has been traveled up to Supreme Court and Supreme Court confirmed that such provision of restricting time to avail input is constitutionally valid. Now, this one more issue, I hope a few of your clients would have received already notices for this 28 NCCF. First of all, what is this 28 NCCF Tran claim? As we all aware, state of Andhra Pradesh was subject to reorganization, Telangana being separated from state of Andhra Pradesh on 2nd June 2014. As on 2nd June 2014, whatever the input tax credit of those VAT dealers are there, they were not carry forwarded to their new TIN number. They were kept in a separate head called 28 NCCF, and all the dealers are required to adjust those 28 NCCF input in every month return. A separate module is being provided. Once the time frame is over, they are expected to claim refund. but many dealers have not claimed the refund and considered it as a transitional credit and claimed the same in their Tran 1 forms. And now notices are being issued that you are not eligible to claim 28 NCCF. You are required to reverse the such Tran 1, pay tax with interest, and you claim a refund under 28 NCCF module. Now, Telangana High Court has came up with a view that it doesn't make any difference because one way you are going to refund and another way you are going to claim. So it's only a technical issue. So same could be reconsidered and the matter has been remanded. So this is one judgment of Magma FinCorp, which is widely being quoted and widely being used now in all 28 NCCF cases. And finally, this is one of the good news from the council. In the latest 45th council, this decision has been taken. Already one decision is taken that wherever we are going to pay the interest should be on net output, not gross output. Now, even for ITC reversal, they have came up with the concept that if ITC is availed but not utilized, no interest is required to be paid. So by mistake, I had claimed some input, but always that input is available in my credit ledger. I didn't use such input, then no interest is required to be paid. If any input is availed and utilized, as of now, department is asking us to pay interest at the rate of 2% per month, that is 24% per annum. There they also clarified that no, it is not going to be 24, it is going to be 18 only, and that too with effect from 1/7/2017. So wherever the cases of improper availment of ITC is, that is ineligible, to say not improper, ineligible ITCs have been claimed and availed, on reversal you are required to pay interest of 18%. So this is what today I want to share with all of you. So we could be open for any questions.
Ashish, I have a small doubt. There is one company which is having registered office in the USA. They are having only subsidiary companies in India for procurement of some materials. Whether they required registration of GST in the India.
Okay, they procure the material in India. Next, what they will do with this material?
No, they will procure material from the India, process, and final product will be released at USA only. Processing, everything will be done at USA. Here they are
exporting to US. The subsidiary company, yes. So they are not entity of a same pan. And all exports are interstate supplies.
Yes.
All exports are interstate supplies. And any dealer who is making interstate supplies is expected to take registration, irrespective of turnover.
Okay.
So in this case, I personally feel that they have to take registration irrespective of turnover.
Achha. And one more question, as I previously also asked you, what is the stand for this Bitcoin and cryptocurrency trading? Because we are now getting some companies, they are coming with, they are starting cryptocurrencies, spending for this much of amount, we are going to give this much of cryptocurrency to you, Bitcoins. And further, they want to go for listing and all those things. That time it is going to be happen, all these things. So whether this treated as a providing of services or trading of goods, because they are dealing with the Bitcoins, which is not in the purview of GST. So what is the GST implication regarding this?
The question requires one more clarification from you, first of all. Your question is from point of view of Bitcoin investor, crypto investor, exchange, or operator?
Cryptocurrency operator.
Cryptocurrency operator is an agent. Okay, he is providing services for which he is charging his service fee.
Hmm.
So there is a service involved, na?
No, actually, what they're telling is the
Okay.
cryptocurrency.
I got. I will give you 1, 2, 3 important clarifications regarding this. There are multiple views that crypto can be taxed, crypto cannot be taxed. Let us go to very basics. Okay, GST. G is goods and S is service. Yes. GST is on goods and GST is on services.
Services.
What is cryptocurrency? Honorable Supreme Court has said that cryptocurrencies are digital assets.
Digital assets. Okay.
Okay, they are not money, but they are digital assets. So can I call them as intangible asset? If it is an intangible asset, it is a good. It is movable. Okay, so one, it is a good. If it is not goods, it is service. Anything other than goods is service.
Hmm.
No, the
Correct.
intention, whether I am doing it with the intent of business or without intent of business. Again, if we go to the definition of business, even a single transaction can be called a business. So I personally feel all crypto transactions are subject to GST. The reason is, if they are considered as intangible assets, they become goods. And the moment you say it is not goods, then it is service, because it doesn't escape the definition of service. Now the next question is rate of tax, which is a very common question. Everybody is asked, okay, if crypto is taxable, what is the rate of tax?
What is the rate of tax?
What is the rate of tax? Notification number 1 and notification number 11 have given us something which is 5, 12, 18, 28. One entry is there. If anything is covered, not covered in the above, the rate of tax is 18%.
18%.
So if you cannot fit it in any of these items, your bad luck would be, it would be taxed to 18%.
Now, while adding the products also, means while registration also, we have to do it as a service provider, not as a trader.
It all depend upon case to case. Who is doing what? And how you are considering, whether you are considering crypto as intangible asset. See, because not only crypto, now we have that new thing called that's FCS. That some chips digital, as you can buy music, you can buy art and everything in digital assets, something like crypto only. So they are goods or services is important. Once you classify them, see whether classification of good or service, it doesn't make any difference. Still they are subject to 18% GST only. One. The only difference is timing. If it is goods, the time of taxation is different. If it is service, the time of taxation is different. So this is the one of the moot issue that we have to handle. But I personally feel all crypto transactions are subject to GST. Wherever we are giving suggestions, where people are involved in GST investment also, we caution them that tomorrow notices for crypto investments will also come. And already few days back, we had a discussion with one of the exchange. One of our client is doing something where he requires the interference of exchange level, where they said that they are reporting even it to enforcement of authorities. Certain transactions already they are expected to report, and they are already reporting also. So cryptos, yes, taxable as of now, unless government come up with some own clarification.
For the timing, they are service providers. Okay. Thank you, Ashish.
Members, so please unmute yourself and ask your doubts or any clarifications, because resource persons is available to answer every question. Please utilize his services.
One latest judgment has came yesterday regarding cancellation of registration. See, even cancellation is also a part of registration. This dealer is regular dealer. Department alleged that he purchased only invoices. That invoices have been received, but goods are not actually received. And on this allegation, his registration is cancelled, even though he says that it is not proved. Still, the department gone ahead, cancelled. He filed an appeal. So he filed for revocation first. Department rejected. He filed for revocation. Revocation request is rejected. Finally, he approached Odisha High Court, where Odisha High Court said that just mere on allegation without proving that he is involved, and that is to say, the High Court has said that for default on the part of supplier, recipient registration cannot be cancelled. Just because other dealer is not paying the taxes, he cannot say that these are fake transactions and the registration cannot be cancelled, and ordered for revocation of the cancellation. So this is very latest judgment which came yesterday from Odisha High Court. And there is one more section which I missed out today, that is section 18, which deals with special cases. Say at times you have bought a good which is exempted from tax, subsequently it became taxable. So it is left with you. Sorry, you have not claimed certain ITCs for those exempted supplies. So with the help of section 18, wherever you are converting from exempted to taxable, taxable to exempted, are capital goods when they are procured for purpose of supplies which are exempted, composition to regular, regular to composition are covered under section 18. But the problem is you have a very short time period. Everything has to be done within 30 days. So this is few things which I missed out, which I had written, but I missed out somewhere. So anything more, please?
Members, please unmute yourself. Any doubts or any clarifications? Because he has allotted a lot of time for your answering your questions. So please utilize this is time. Members, please. Because you are already acquired the full knowledge of or benefited for these deliberations. So, have you come across any doubts or any cases which on your purview, which on your knowledge? Please bring to light that we will discuss. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Hello, sir. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, Jagdish, you continue.
Sir, I have a doubt. Actually, these gold people and all, gold shops and all, so they often go to exhibitions, jewelry exhibitions, and there they will sell the products over there. So, do I need to take the casual taxable person registration in that state for that
Yes, sir.
temporary purpose?
You are going from one state to another state.
Yeah, sir. Correct.
Yes, you are expected to take casual taxable person, and you
Yeah.
have to file the registration 5 days in advance before you reach there.
Okay.
You have to pay entire tax in advance.
Okay.
Once you close the exhibition, you get back, then you get your assessment done and get refund whatever you have paid in advance.
Okay. So my jurisdiction will be in that state. So there I have to go to that assistant commissioner or whoever it is, have to go complete that assessment and get back my taxes if there are shortage or excess. Fine, sir. Thank you.
Members, please come, or you can put your questions in chat box also. Sir, very recently they have suspended 5 chartered accountants regarding the GST frauds. Can you enlighten any frauds?
not only GST, sir, even income tax also. We are privileged to listen one of our Central Council members, who is one of among us. He was telling that left, right, top, bottom. Now, all the departments are filing complaints against chartered accountants wherever they are getting an opportunity. So for everything, yes, we are the scapegoats. We are the first person to face the music. Even while taking the registrations, one case we have got that even the lady just registered the return, and just because she has registered, she was arrested. So the thing is, we don't know entire facts. Whatever we are reading in the media, whatever we are
Yes.
reading in the press releases, we are going through. To what extent the chartered accountant is involved, we are not aware. But yes, so very already started. Instead, has started one new course, certification course on working paper management.
Ah.
I'm privileged to be one of the members of the very latest third batch. So next month we are going to write down the exam also. There we are discussing, even the faculties were discussing on this part, that even for registration and even while filing the returns, we have to take proper care to see that we are independent and we are not party to the transactions. So the problematic part is our WhatsApp, sir. Client sends us something, we reply something. At times the reply is a part of tax planning or tax evasion. And that is sufficient evidence that you are also party to the transaction, even though your intent is to educate.
Yes,
How
yes.
we draft the word, how we intimate to the client is very much important, sir. This is not only for GST, sir, even for income tax, even for other laws also. So this is one of the problematic area. Yes, so I think the suspension has not completed. They were under the inquiries. As of now, inquiry is not completed, sir. Even certain chartered accountants have been arrested. Every month we get one chartered accountant arrested of this GST. Frankly చెప్పాలి అంటే జిఎస్టీ ప్రాక్టీస్ చేయాలి అంటే ఒక మంచి అడ్వకేట్ తో ఫ్రెండ్షిప్ పెట్టుకోవాల్సిందే. లేకపోతే నేను వచ్చి బెయిల్ తెప్పించుకోవడం కష్టం, సార్. And even courts are very much stringent, sir. Even actually we handle certain high court matters with the help, means we wherever after commissioner appeals, we have associated with certain advocates where we provide entire support to see that the documents are being filed at high court and how it is being represented. They were also telling for economic offenses, as of now, courts are also very much stringent. Bail ఇవ్వట్లేదు అది ఎవరైనా కూడా. It's really getting very tough to get a bails in economic offenses. Now, sir, I got one question regarding GTA. The GTA is 5% under RCM or 12% forward charge. If we pay the amount of GTA, if we paid the amount of GTA and paid taxes under RCM, can we claim ITC of 5% paid? Yes, any input, any taxes which is paid under RCM is eligible to claim ITC. So whatever the RCM 5% we are paying for GTA under RCM, it is eligible to claim ITC. The condition there is, if the tax is at 5%, the person making the supply cannot get the ITC, not us. Recipient can get the ITC. The supplier is not eligible to claim ITC. So this is one question I got on the chat box.
Sir, one more question regarding this our apartment of construction of apartments. So the firm is one, but they are doing 2 or 3 apartments simultaneously. So can they avail ITs of one project to the other project? Because it is a business is a continuity activity. So one project's ITC they can avail for the another project. Is that possible?
Prashant garu, I am understanding that your question is under the old scheme. That is 1/4 before 1/4/2019. Because if it is a question of after 1/4/2019, no question of ITC. So in the old scheme, see, there is no restriction that the ITC of one project cannot be availed in the second project. So yes, you can avail, but unluckily one advance ruling is there again from Assam, I remember. Luckily department is also not accepting that advance ruling. There the question is, the dealer is dealing in oil seeds and gold. he is buying oil seeds from unregistered dealers, and he is buying gold. Can he avail the ITC for this ITC for that? I don't know what gone wrong there, but the officer said, no, you cannot. But in the law, there is no such restriction. A project ITC can be used in B project ITC.
Because they are started in the before the GST regime as it a big project, that ITC is still they remain with their firms. They that ITC they want to utilize it, and the another
If it is
which
under
is
the old scheme, if it is under the old scheme, yes, you can
old
utilize.
scheme.
But the problem is, even in the old scheme, you have to maintain project-wise ITC for purpose of Rule 42-43. So
That
if
is the
rule-
main.
if Rule 42-43 compliance is done, and still there is some ITC left, yes, you can use from here to there, there to here.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Members, please, you can put it in chat box also and take clarifications. Any sort of matter under GST, is an expert under GST. So sir, am I audible, sir? Members,
Sir, you are audible, sir.
Yes, yes, yes.
please respond, sir. We excellently covered all the matters, points one by one, and very slowly, and very clarity and concept wise, and picture you have given, sir. So that's why members understood the all doubts. They got clarification by your deliberations. Now I request our secretary, sir, Prashant Kumar Panda, please say vote of thanks, sir.
Respected Vice Chairman CA Vasudeva Garu, Land Speaker, my dear friend CA Ashish Agrawal ji, past chairman, senior members, and other dignitaries. Good evening to all. I am privileged to propose vote of thanks for this session on my own behalf and behalf of the Visakhapatnam branch members. Sir, I convey my sincere thanks for accepting our invitation and sharing your valuable knowledge for the benefit of our members. Sir, your vibrant deliberations on registration issues and ITC issues given an insight and enlightenment to of all members. Your approach from registration and its process and ITC issues discussed with support of judicial updates or exhaustively covered and extremely well. And thank you for your wonderful deliberation, sir. Thank you very much. And we always feel comfortable when you are when we invite you for GST seminars. Thank you for giving us comfort. I also extend my thanks to all the members who are participated in this seminar. Members, on 27th, 28th November, branch is conducting RRC program at Maredupalli. Maredumilli, sorry, Maredumilli. I request all the members please join and got education with entertainment. Thank you very much, one and all.
Thank you, Ashish Garu. Thank you very much, sir.